do we want to do Roll Casket and Maria first? Just do you want to do this in like opposite order, and then that way we can just kind of make sure that we have time to
No.
get the good. Okay,
Fucking-
really. All right.
Fucking Binah has been waiting for like 3 months.
Well, no,
If not
yeah,
longer.
but like, I mean, it's gonna be a while before these. Okay, fuck it. Like, we're just gonna get this done. Let's commit to it. We got it. Let's just.
I mean, the whole point of these shorter episodes is to hopefully get them out faster.
That's true, but reality ensues. Anyway.
Cool.
Oh, and welcome everybody. Welcome to the not funny number episode of Strip Poker Night at the Inventory podcast. We're not quite there yet. It's episode 68. I'm your host, Spnanon, here with my co-host, nmasp, who almost interrupted me. He tried to stop himself, but he just can't help it.
I really can't. I have so much to say and so little to say.
And we also have a guest. Just kidding. We don't have a guest. We're on the fence about who this guest is. Lol, JK, JK, rused again. That's him. He's the guy who takes us on a ruse cruise. Maker of Bobobo, maker of some Yashtola, who we famously forgot to mention for like 3 podcasts in a row. Maker of Kaz Khan, the legendary,
the one, the only,
the finest bachelor in all of Neo Yokio, and maker of like just 2 more characters that just dropped out of fucking nowhere that we'll probably talk about next time. But yeah, that's literally his name, although he has like 3 names. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Just kidding.
I mean, I feel at this point you said basically everything there is to say about me. I'm here, I made those things, and now I'm speaking to you people.
This dude is a funny motherfucker, at least in writing. And now we're putting him on the spot to be
this is
funny.
Just great.
Live on air. Say some funny things, funny man.
Yeah. I also want to say
you got a joke for us?
God damn it, Spnanon. Let me finish. I also really appreciate that literally, like, the second this guy gets characters off of, like, the testing roster, he's just like, oh, here's another one, and another one, and another one.
We already know he's making more of them.
Oh, yeah, I know, I'm sure. Like I can't wait to see...
Mystical Ninja Goemon, N64 game. Because this dude is apparently old as hell. He played, like, on an NES.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, the mask was old as hell. This is the old folks podcast.
Yeah. Anyway, well, just kidding. Go ahead. And are we calling you just kidding or fence for this one? What's easiest for you?
Whatever makes you happy.
This is
I know I kind of monopolized the conversation there, but is there anything you'd like to start off by saying?
Happy to be here. I saw mischief in the eyes of my cats as I was sitting down to start this, so if they attack me, I apologize.
This is just like, you have like the exact energy of the guy who wrote Bobobo, Kaz Khan, and Yashtola, as well as all these other things. So it's like, of course, right? Anyway, so welcome aboard the podcast. Spanon, I think you are starting our agenda off with some big topics.
But before we get to main roster and testing roster additions, we actually recorded fairly quickly compared to the last one, so we're not totally impossibly behind. But we do have some general game goings on to talk about first.
Yeah,
pretty big stuff, all things considered. And the first is the first 2 are kind of linked. We have something called fuzzy sorting. So in the past. Well, this goes together with the other thing we're talking about, which is the resort. The 15th roster resort just passed, which is basically a set of like Reddit and Discord polls and like in-game stuff that you can click on. Which characters do you think are the best or your favorites, or would you like to be featured at the top? And that basically reshuffles the character roster, so the more popular characters are sort of pushed higher up, like players see them more often, basically. And it's the exact methodology, and the winners and losers and such are subject to a lot of rigmarole and politicking and general controversy, mostly among devs. Players just blink and it's just like whatever.
Keep playing their game.
I'm just gonna pick Ruby again wherever she is.
Yeah, right.
Or that. or like they don't even notice because they haven't played the game in like 7 months and they come back. Oh, it's different. Well, whatever. So it's a whole lot of sound and fury signifying nothing really.
What do you mean you added a 6th Doki Doki Literature Club? That's crazy.
But nevertheless, this is our 15th one, and the general results didn't change much other than that. I guess we got a whole bunch of new players because the main in-game poll got a ton more responses than it usually did. I want to say like at least 200 more or some shit. Which I was not exactly the the winner in that scenario, unfortunately.
The numbers worked out. It seems like
it was fine enough. It didn't jostle things too hard. But I mean, a lot of the newcomers did fairly well. I mean, there were big winners like Nagatoro and Nico Robin. Did either of you have like new characters that got like sorted for the first time?
I had 2.
Marinette, kind of not a new character, but it was her first resort.
Oh, that's right. The Bobobo sweep.
Yes.
Oh, Bobobo sweep.
Bobobo sweep.
What happened with that exactly?
I mean, I think for the
on brand.
He beat the shit out of Adrian and Leon, and I'm just like amazed. Well done, sir.
Him up with his nose hair.
Walked right over them, right to the top.
Truly impressive.
This was a mistake.
Like, it's the equivalent of him winning like a Tumblr sexy man poll or something. Like
this is like the kind of thing you read about.
That's such a nonsense term, Tumblr sexy man. But I mean, anything and anyone can be a Tumblr sexy man. But I don't think they've tried it. I don't think they tried it with Bobo, to my knowledge.
Everything's a nonsense term until people use it enough for it to have a definition.
Well, and then it's even more nonsense.
You know what? When you see it,
words are just made up sounds, guys. Like they don't have any inherent meaning.
Words don't mean things.
Words are just sounds that come out of our mouths that we ascribe arbitrary meaning to.
Go back to the true language, hitting people over the head with heavy objects. That I understand.
Why use many word when few will do?
Sea World.
But yeah, I have no idea where Kaz plays.
So yeah,
I have the resort in front of me. He did okay. Where did he place? He placed at 92nd, so he's in the top half for being new. That's pretty good. Yeah.
You gotta temper your expectations for male characters.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting too much out of that. I think the thing that really surprised me and I liked was Y'shtola jumped up a few places, or more than a few, really, a dozen. So, and that was nice to see.
Nice.
But yeah, I haven't really felt like emotionally affected by a resort since the very first one that I participated in, with Y'shtola being on the chopping block, and then it was like, oh, what do people actually think? And then be like, oh my gosh, oh no, and then being like, what does this even mean? So it was all like over in a handful of days for me. This has been slightly more exciting because, you know, I accidentally broke everything.
Well done, sir.
I am sorry.
No, I mean, well deserved. Like, Bobo is a great character. He's not what I would want to play Spinati with all the time, but I think he's really fucking funny, and you've definitely put in the work for him.
Well, shucks. I do try.
He is good. All your stuff is good, I will say that. So,
God, it helps him.
It's such a brutal reality check for male characters that they're always like dead last in the general polling.
I mean, like, I kind of like, I've never been disappointed in my results for my male characters, but, you know.
I'm just saying, like, we treat them, you know, like devs, you know, like we target them, we talk about how we like them, we treat them as if they're equal citizens, and the general player base.
They heavily benefit from affirmative action. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, any surprises?
Just cast them aside.
Any surprises? I think stalking going up as high as she did was like kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, I don't think she was really on anyone here's radar like that. So I think
I don't know.
I mean, deserved for sure, but yeah.
Some of the polls I think are a little suspect in terms of like what is the purpose of this?
Right.
Because like stalking placed really high on like the subreddit and Discord polls, and it's like, is there really a point to those? I want to say, because they're just like polling like a specific subset of like the people that happened to check there. this week, but still aren't super invested in the game. So they're like
I mean,
really mercurial.
They're at least more invested than anyone who just clicks on the poll because it comes up in the game. I mean, they hear about it and they go out of their way to go find those, and maybe they do just trip over it on accident. But I think the idea is perhaps, I mean, if you're a person who only votes in one of those 3 polls, then how invested could you really be? But if you do vote in more than one, if you vote in all 3, then I mean, you have to go out of your way to do that. I don't think you accidentally find all 3, although I guess you could if you weren't trying.
The other takeaway is that general players are pretty selective. They're pretty mean. I mean, it's not like they only pick like 1 or 2 characters, but it's generally like the more selective, like the smaller the group, like if it's just devs, like the more people they generally pick because we want to be all happy and supportive. And it's just like, oh, the fuck is this? Get her out of here. I don't like her.
I mean, like, I think the dev polls like are really, quite tight in terms of things. Like if you look and it's like most of the character, it's sort of like it follows the trends. Like there's very few characters that are like, oh, the devs love this person, but everyone else doesn't. But it is like, if you're in that top like 20 or so, you're getting over 20-ish votes. And then, some of you guys are getting 38, 39, but no one's getting like all of the things all the time.
Anyway, the reason we're talking about the resort so much is because we after much debate and raucous like criticism and back and forth and flame wars in the Spinati Senate, we've finally passed legislation to I guess try to limit its effects. In the past, it was like whatever.
I still don't understand what drove this, but I don't think it's a bad change.
Whatever position you got, like just raw position, like 1, 2, 3, 4, back in the day in past resorts. This resort 15. I don't know how many I've been through, but it's
many of them.
Yeah, it was like that was just it. You were if you got like number 3, you were just number 3 always to everybody. Now, with fuzzy sorting, it basically it's like you're kind of number 3, like that's your baseline mathematically, but for every like client side instance of the game in like a 24-hour period or whatever it is, like it just like applies a random like multiplier, like based on like a probability distribution. So you could end up like halfway down the roster, or someone else could jump up really high. So for the most part, like people trend basically on average to be where they should be, or like I guess where the resort said was their baseline, but it varies wildly depending on the person. I mean, you can argue like how wildly it actually is, because for the most part, like it's like kind of the same and just jumble around a little bit. Some people want it to go further, and they're wrong. I personally, well, I'll let you two say your pieces on it first, because there's basically beat out a policy proposal that I put forth, which was
like the tiering thing.
Yeah, it was basically tiering. So like where there'd be mathematical cutoffs, where it's like first chunk of 30 get like randomized among themselves, and the next chunk of 30.
I thought this was tiering, but anyway, no. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't really know I guess like I speak from a position of relative privilege here, because like my stuff tends to do about as well as I want it to, and not from like, oh my God, I'm so good at this, which is more like you put in the effort where it counts, and you don't where it doesn't. And I think that's generally worked really well for me. But I think if this like alleviates like bad feelings, then so be it. But I really didn't realize there was a difference between this and like the tiering structure. But that's kind of goes to show that I'm more writing the game than playing it. I don't know. It just feels like the raw results of the resort are kind of like, well, that's what happened, right? I don't really understand why there needs to be that big of a distinction.
Distinction between what?
Like where you placed on like the resort metric and where you kind of like get fuzzy sorted, I guess. Like, I don't know. I guess like the point that I'm trying to make is like, it's all kind of arbitrary. Like whether it's like the equation is arbitrary or the votes are arbitrary, or this, that, and the other thing are arbitrary. Like ultimately, the math kind of picks its winner or loser. And I think if the fuzzy sorting ultimately like gets people to chill out, then that's great. I just don't understand quite how it works, which I think is excusable.
I mean, I'm kind of in the camp where my ability to care about this sort of thing is truncated by just who I am. So it wasn't really a fight I had a dog in, but I do see the merits of fuzzy sorting for sure. Because I mean, the raw poll results are still. I hear what you're saying. The raw poll results are still there. They are still what they are. They're still like set in stone, despite where you get sorted. So I mean, if the idea was just to alleviate feelings over that, I mean, the poll is the poll. You can't change that. But I think the idea that even if the poll is the poll and you can't change the fact that you didn't perform as well as you wanted to, you're at least comforted by the fact that it's not going to like banish your character down into the depths forever. You have a way to kind of grapple out of there. But yeah,
sure.
I don't know exactly how fuzzy the sorting is. I do know that wherever Bobo's placed, he can fuzzy sort all the way up to the top. It does seem like it has quite a bit of range on it right now, but that might be something that we're still in the middle of calibrating. You can probably make it less fuzzy or even more fuzzy if you wanted to. I did hear someone say that you can't fuzzy sort all the way from the bottom to the top based on how it works. But yeah, I mean, that's something we can figure out. Unfortunately, I never really was a fan of the idea of tiering things, because then it feels like you're kind of, because again, if the idea is to kind of soften the blow of what the results are and what the results of the results are, then it feels like tiering is like a 1-2 punch instead, because first you get like, oh, I didn't perform as well, and then it's like, oh, now I'm being placed in the in an undesirable cast.
The remedial tier.
Yeah, I gotta hang out in the cast with.
Go hang out with 9S.
Yeah,
at the bottom.
Like every time you load the game, you're sorted right next to Hara, and it's like, oh, this is what people think of me. I'm the fart character. But I mean, I can see
the fart in the house now, dog.
Yeah, it definitely is a system that like it neatly kind of organizes things to make things predictable. But I think if the things we want are just for people not to get like super too down about the results, and we still want to make sure we're putting our best foot forward, I think fuzzy sorting does that just fine. I don't see any. I mean, I haven't experienced any problem with it. I don't foresee any real problems with it. It might be slightly confusing to people who are used to characters being where they are, but again, I mean, if you know who you're looking for, just push for them. But if you're looking for someone random, I think this works, and I don't think it should be anymore. I don't think it should be completely random. I know people think that's fair, but I don't think it should be a system that's 100% fair, because some characters are just objectively better than others, and we want to make sure they are floating to the top.
I also kind of think that I agree with basically everything you said. Just kidding, but the one thing I guess I would also add is it's sometimes just good to change the way we're doing things just to keep it fresh. Like there's always a better way out there. There's never a perfect solution.
Mm-hmm.
So if taking those adjustments ultimately makes that better, then so be it, right?
Yeah, and I think
I don't like fuzzy sorting, but I'm very much in favor of what you just said. That the last thing I want is for us to just throw up our hands and be like, oh, just make it all random, or just take this bit of methodology that we have and just get rid of it. Just throw it out. Just throw a hissy fit and fucking give up and stop trying to iterate or think.
Right.
Yes, this is a system that we've created and it doesn't benefit everyone equally, but we're trying to make it work and trying to incorporate as many dev mindsets as we possibly can. And we're not going to get everything perfect the first time, but it's worth trying. Ham-fisted political metaphor insert here.
Speaking of trying, if we're depending on how we're feeling about this subject, marathons require quite a lot of effort too.
I barely said my piece.
Are you not? Oh, you're not done yet.
No.
See, it's a traditional cast. All right, go on.
I want to briefly say why I proposed and supported the whole tiering thing is because going along that whole randomness point, I think there's a lot of value in giving some sort of tangible achievement point to strive for, and to see yes, I earned this. It's qualitative.
Yeah.
I think that was sort of the nice thing about the way it was before. It's hey, you got 16th place, but you're there now and you have it and you earned it. And it can't be taken away from you.
Yeah, I agree with. I really.
And maybe that was too granular and too hyper competitive, which is why I discussed making it a little more general. But just saying hey, B tier is B tier, and maybe that's not perfect, but it's all right, I have a thing that I can attach myself to, and it's okay, I got that, and it's not
yeah.
And there's no huge difference between 86th and 75th. Because I would not argue that there's a big quality difference there. Whereas between 1 and 31, now you might start to see something.
Right.
You could argue not, but I just with fuzzy, it's just
yeah.
Okay, you got the raw results, so you got that punch, and then you go to regardless of how you feel about them, you go to the game and it gets all fuzzy sorted and it's all random bullshit, and it's just so that happened to me, but not really. And I guess I just kind of vaguely exist in this nebula of roster space that changes for everyone, and I don't know what anyone is looking at, and I can't feel anything.
Right.
Which I guess might be the point. I don't know. It particularly, I'm a particular victim of this, which is why I stopped railing against it, because I kind of realized that, because if Nami drops or Natsuki drops 5 rows, it doesn't really matter. They're still gonna see them and be oh, yeah. I know them. Whereas fucking Ray Clone, who gives a shit, isn't immediately visible. Suddenly, they just glaze over completely. You're not going to notice her at all. So I'm a particular loser, whereas for most people, it's a net benefit.
I mean, I think you're kind of touching on this idea of what is for instance, I play a lot of other games. I do a lot of other hobbies that are somewhat competitive, and I get my ass kicked all the time, right? It just getting your ass kicked means you're pushing up and trying your best, right? And sometimes you are in unwinnable situations. I'm not going to be able to go outrun a guy who runs 2 hours every day. It's just but with the 45 minutes I do or whatever, that's pretty good. So I guess the point that I'm trying to say is I think competition is just kind of natural, and not to say that it is a competition, but it's kind of we're all adding to the game at our own pace. And insofar as people want to be competitive, I think it's kind of in the nature of reality that there will be people who people like the best. And likewise, there's characters that are just inherently more accessible than others, right? I mean, to use Maya and Natsuki, right? Both of those are pretty accessible characters once you play them. If you're familiar with anime at all, both those archetypes. But then when you try and throw someone in I don't know, Amy, then suddenly it's well, what the fuck is going on here? It's you have chocolate and you have vanilla, and suddenly you're throwing guava into the fucking mix. So I do think it's kind of some things are because you did a really good job. Maybe you made a really compelling guava flavor, but it's still not, people are still going to gravitate towards chocolate, if those are the options available to them, right? So anyway,
nmasp, you chose a very apt comparison just a moment before with running and competition.
Yeah, marathons are also a lot of work, and much like preparing for the Spinati Resort, you can commit to something and build on it at your own pace. Which brings us over to our next little mini topic.
Illustrious and seasoned game moderator Arndress, just out of the blue, has set up a collaborative, or I guess competitive,
Both.
little dialogue writing marathon event where basically every week he just like creates this like objective that everyone who's like still in the marathon just has to like cumulatively build up to. And basically, if you're the lowest that week, you've dropped out, and it's gone on for about I think we're in our third week.
5 weeks.
So it's stuff like add the most markers or target the specific character the most, and it's I'm still in it. A lot of people just dropped out because they were just kind of like in it by accident. And he's offered some rewards, some very interesting rewards, like commissioned art pieces.
Oh yeah.
So
I love the commissioned Spatty art stuff. Like I will throw fucking money at that shit all day. It makes me really happy.
We'll see how long it goes on for.
Yeah, I mean it could be a while. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Once it's been like pretty strained through, and there's only a few people left, then it could start to drag on.
I think I lost in the first week.
Getting sniped at the last second.
Yeah, I think I lost like at the last week, and I think like Napsu's gonna get really competitive about it, so that could be interesting.
Oh, of course she is.
I know. Every time it's like, anyway. So
I really wish he did this in some other month where I wasn't trying to juggle art stuff as well.
Yeah.
That's just how it is on this bitch of an earth.
Fuck this gay earth, as they say.
Just kidding. You're still in it with all your characters, right?
Correct. I am still in it with all 5 legs in the race.
God damn, dude. What a fucking badass.
I liked that Reddit post that made it look like both me and Napsu were just harassing Kumatora.
Oh shit, yeah. That was a real was that all your characters?
It was the only characters on there were mine and hers.
Amazing.
The only character of mine that wasn't included was Kaz. I don't know what he was doing.
He's taking pictures in the background.
Of course.
He's getting a nice Toblerone.
Is Kaz into Kumatora?
I haven't developed things far enough for me to really know. I don't think there's any initial like super interest. I think he just sees another pink-haired person who can do what he assumes is magic, and he's like, "Is that my cousin? Are we related?"
All right. Well, it's been half an hour, and we should probably get to the main roster and testing roster editions. We don't have too many to go through this time, so we can try to get through it a little faster. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the game in general. Hopefully, by a couple podcast episodes from now, we'll have a bit more to say about how the marathon is shaken out, because right now it's still in its early stages. But as for the main roster, nmasp, you want to take us into our 2 new additions we have since last time?
I do. First,
technically more, but
but we're doing 2 for right now. First on our roster list is the tribeswoman and hero herself from a post-cyberpunk future, and proud member of the Genshin Impact crew. Just kidding. It's
the first member of the GI crew.
Aloy of the Nora from Horizon Zero Dawn. Yeah. So Aloy is from the Horizon series. She recently late in testing. I think she got an art update to the face of the character. It was pretty difficult, but she looks super cute now. Just kidding. What do you think about Aloy, just in brief, and then we'll kind of breeze through it?
I'm not terribly familiar with Aloy's source material. I watched my girlfriend play maybe 15 minutes of Horizon Zero Dawn, so I came in with a very clean slate of not knowing who she was. But I did play a few games with her, and I've looked at her in the past just out of curiosity, and I think she's pretty well put together. I do believe the updates that went into her art were worthwhile and are definitely an improvement, so I don't think anyone should feel like they wasted time on that. That was a good thing y'all did. So yeah, generally I think she has nice things to say. She looks good. That I have written down here. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was vamping because I couldn't figure out what my note meant. One thing I did notice is she doesn't have a whole lot in the way of various poses. She's kind of scant in that department. They're not, compared to a lot of modern characters, she doesn't have a whole lot, and they are all through all of her stages. They're all pretty much the same, even through the forfeit stage. And I think maybe specifically in that stage, there's room. You should take some wiggle room and like really show off, like how much you like this character and how much you think you want to bang her. I don't get that sense from it all the time, or what I should, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback. As for me, I kind of did my little piece. I think she's really cute. As ever, I just think I think her perspective on things could be really interesting depending on the character she's talking with. So my only real feedback is like, it would be great to see her interact more with like male characters. I know she talks to Dunban and Dwight a little bit from my play, but it would be cool to see just more of this like focused dialogue to make sure that there's kind of an ongoing conversation, because the world that she's from is really interesting. And I think it would be really cool to continue to like explore like what is different between Zero Dawn and like, the old world, as she calls it, or some of these other fantasy worlds that she's sort of touched by virtue of like Genshin Impact. That's all I got. Spinanon?
I'm not going to complain about Aloy, right? That's how you say it?
Yeah, Aloy.
I'm not going to complain about Aloy because I sponsored her with some specific requests, and they did as I asked. Wrote some more specific generic lines about like what she's into and what she wants from other people, and they gave her a butt. That's the main thing.
Okay. Fair play.
I mean, really, what else can you ask for? What more? What can a man do? Although, looking back at her now, I'm surprised, like, because like Bullet Shock, her artist, is like really into like muscle girls and stuff. I'm kind of surprised she's not like a little more muscular. Maybe he was just getting his feet wet with model making. Or I don't know. Maybe she's not supposed to be muscular. I don't know, but it kind of seems like she would be.
I do believe this is his first foray into a model being in the game. So,
no, he made a couple other things. He made like Jill from Resident Evil.
Oh yeah, he was just bemoaning that. I remember that. He was sad Jill died.
She became a Jill sandwich.
I wasn't going to say it. Glad that you did. So we're moving quite along. It's not quite a lightning round, but speaking of lightning and butt poses, the next character that made it to the main roster is good old Kora, not from The Legend of, but from Xenoblade Chronicles. So Kora is a blade by Onboro. Interestingly, she does not have a penis. It's a joke that will never get old. Sorry, Onboro, you've made your bed. You get to lie in it now. What do you think of her? Just kidding.
Yeah, this is another character that I've never played Xenoblade or Xenoblade 2 or the other one, 3. And I don't know anything about this character in general, but I love Kora a lot. Like, it's hard to overstate how much I like Kora. She's just got a lot of energy, and she's really just, I understand that she's a bubbly chatterbox, and the energy is there, and I just like it. I barely have any notes. The only note really is whatever she has, I want more of. She's got 7 ass poses already, so maybe not more of those. But yeah, I don't have that's basically all I have to say.
Yeah, I think I'm not trying to be too lazy, but I think like my biggest feedback is more. I think the personality she has is really striking. I'll be honest, like compared to like Aloy, where the world and the scenario there is a little bit more interesting. I think Xenoblade is just a little too chaotic for me to really relate to, but I do think she's really cute. And I really hope that she continues to get more dialogue to talk about. Like, she's great. I just wish, there was a little bit more, targeting and so forth.
Kora is she's cute and she's funny and she's got a nice butt that Onboro spent some time sculpting.
Indeed.
And giving us progress updates on. I kind of agree with you though in that she's maybe not the best representative of her series on her own, because there is a lot of like complicated lore to like what's going on with her, because she's not even like a human. But
right.
She's too ditzy to really communicate it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whereas, we'll probably talk about Aqua next cast, but like she is like mild mannered and very professional. And even though Kingdom Hearts is a fucking nightmare, she is like intelligent and like well spoken, and she can kind of explain the things that are relevant to her. Where Cora's just like, hey, I'm a blade, whatever that means. I have a fat ass. Fucking look at it. Ooh, what's that? A butterfly. Like,
also my ass.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead. Look at my ass. But I can't say she's like a bad presence on the roster. She kind of fell by the wayside in a meta sense for a while, because he was a little obsessed with making his April Fool's Fuda characters Sandy and Tess. We thought that she might die. We thought Kora might die and never come back, banished to the non-Fuda mind.
Would have been unfortunate.
But eventually she rose again.
Say what you will about Onboro and his Fuda obsession, he obviously has
good
a
shit.
talent.
Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's no slouch. He can make characters. He just really wanted to make 2 specific ones. He can't stop.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, so
that was his like form of like that was like his form of like civil protest about how we can't have Fuda characters in the game because the pronouns don't work in all the lines.
True.
So it's just like, well, I'll just fuck you. I'll just make it April Fools.
Yeah.
He's on a crusade to just get everyone to individually target Sandy and Tess.
So I'm certain that if you play them with my girls, halfway through they'll just switch and be like, oh wow, you're so buff and hairy.
What? Oh, yeah,
because
okay.
those lines
right.
go with
I gotcha. So anyway,
wow, you're shaped so different from a woman.
With the penis, the penis. Anyway,
everyone always says Venus in vagina. No one ever says Venus with vagina.
True. That feel when no Venus. Boco de Pepis.
Okay. Any final thoughts on our main roster additions?
Let's move on to testing, and also a main roster character.
Prize, ruse, just kidding. Aha. Because turns out we have another main roster addition. And also, simultaneously, a testing edition. That's how long we've been putting her off. You thought Y'shtola had it bad. Fucking Binah, or Binah, or whatever it is, from Lobotomy Corporation, came in at just the worst possible time. Because we had like a long recording session, which was like, oh, we'll get to her next time. And then it took a long time for the episodes to come out, and then we wanted to catch up on the main roster
testing characters
that had already been covered in testing. And well, she's finally here.
She is.
This is by Zuja, Mama Zuja, who is actually like, you may not know this. She was the progenitor of the Spnanon podcast.
True.
Came up with the original idea, and they were there on like the first few episodes.
Yeah.
And I was just there as not even really a co-host, like
as
Andrew.
A goon.
I was just sort of a hanger-on. I just failed upwards and became Joe's co-host, and then Joe died, and I just became the host somehow. That's just the way it is. It's a learning experience. It's just, just put yourself out there. Just say yes. Say yes, I will be on your Spnanon podcast, and I will get 300 views on YouTube every month till the end of time.
Embrace it.
Yeah, this is Binah. I'm just gonna say Binah because she's non-binary from Lobotomy Corporation. Unfortunately, Zuja seems to have bounced again, but not before kind of speedrunning this character to the main roster. So yeah, but we're just gonna talk about her in full because we never really talked about her on testing.
Yeah. So just kidding. Why don't you get us started, and then I'll go in and spin on Will.
Okay. So did you two aware that I helped make this character?
Yeah, you did part of the arts, right?
Yeah. Sad Bat made the initial model. I cleaned it up a little and then posed it. And I did that. This is another character that I have no idea who they are. Never played Lobotomy Corporation. Never had a lobotomy. So I don't. To this day, I am unsure who Binah is or Binah. I don't know that either. So all I know is I saw the model and I was like, this could be slightly better. I think this is good, but it could be better. And then I improved it. And then I was like, do you want to maybe help posing this? So I helped facilitate her meteoric rise onto the main roster. But yeah, I probably won't talk about the art too much because I don't want to self-aggrandize. I mean, it's fantastic. We all know it. I don't need to say much more than that, right? So, but her personality is nice. She's just really kind of authoritative, kind of scary. I like it. She reads a lot. But yeah, I don't have any real notes on the writing that I can think of, other than, I mean, I wish there was more. It would have been fun to see her, scare some people and quote some more Shakespeare at some unfortunate people. But yeah, I really think the only thing is just lean a little more into how scary and mysterious she is, because I think we have so many happy, fearful people who are willing to divulge their secrets. I think it's good to have at least one person on the main roster who's like, no, I'm an enigma, and I would rather you be confused.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Dommy Mommy is cool. Yeah, not really any notes. I think the model is really cute. I think she really keeps like an element of like professional class all the way down to the bottom, which is really cool. I like her model. I like her design. I like the way she's written. Compared to most characters where I'm like usually like the feedback I'll give is like just more of this, like given Zuja's kind of like ephemeral nature when it comes to writing, I think this character is very complete and very good to go. Like you can throw her in a game with anyone. The generics are really strong. There's filters where you kind of expect them. I do wish, as ever, there were more targeted dialogue, but in Binah's particular case, I'd really like to see more filtered dialogue just to kind of play into that power balance a little bit more. But yeah, I think she's great. Great addition to the game.
Binah has some really fun and expressive and like smug or like menacing posing. This is something I'll probably talk about a little more next time with some other characters, but like the willingness to really like contort a character's face or change something about the shading of it goes a long way in sort of giving them like just a memorable look, or really selling how they're feeling. And it's something that you wouldn't get from just like default Kisake. So she's stoic and she's terse, which I'm always a fan of. And in general, I think I'm a big fan of like really any character that has like a really unique voice. And Binah has a very different air from like the typical character, because most of them are like happy and cheery, and she's just like, yes, let me quote my classic literature and apply it to the game state. She does seem like the kind of she's in that realm of like anime character. I think Lobotomy Corporation is like a Korean game, but even still, she's got that air of like like those kind of anime characters where like they slaughter a whole platoon of men without like spilling any of their tea. I'm pretty sure that's like implied to be the level she's on, because she's like 1,000 years old and runs like the super mega cities archival library or whatever. I think she could demonstrate her power a little bit more, just like in some fun kind of custom poses. Because otherwise, if you constantly talk about how powerful you are, it just kind of feels like you're LARPing. At least with Revi, it's like, well, she has a gun. I know what a gun does.
Who's gonna whip that gun out?
Binah, it's just like a chick with a book and a teacup.
Girl, what that gun do?
Girl. Anyway.
So yeah,
Binah's good.
let's see other notes.
Give Binah gun. Got it.
She had some good quotes. She had some good like literary quotes. Could probably use a few more. And the tough part is sometimes applying them in the right spot or finding some good ones.
Filtered lines do that well.
Evil eyes, but a fun smile. I think she could get some. Well, it's kind of a moot point unless Zuja ever returns again. But I think something that could be really interesting is like she's smart and smart enough to be like kind of interested in like information and the other characters. I think it'd be cool if she like kind of like questioned other characters, maybe like studied their expertise a little bit, kind of probed like, oh, you know, what are the things that you know, and like what do you your mechanical knowledge or something like that, or the specs of your weapons or something like that. I think that'd be pretty interesting. But overall, you know, Zuja came and went as the winter wind, but a pretty solid character.
Okay, well, moving on to the second character on the testing roster for today.
Yes, Binah's a little inscrutable. She's a bit of a mystery. She's enigmatic, and who better to solve that mystery than the ultimate detective? A full-on new folder, complete redo of one of Spinatti's most classic characters, Kyoko Kirigiri from Danganronpa, which I think she's from the first.
My God, we haven't had a dang it Ron Paul in so long.
Not since 2012.
Oh my God. Anyway,
here she is. I think she might have some custom hair that I can't quite post.
Yeah, she does.
Oh, she's got like a lot of custom poses.
Her clothes and everything and hair are super well detailed. This is a great model, but unfortunately, it means that she's kind of custom and you can't post them individually. It needs to be like running in game time to come up properly. But here she is, Kyoko Kirigiri. This is a character that an older version existed for a long time in the game, and I'm going to go ahead and post her now if I can find a good pose. Old Kyoko only had like 7 poses. It's just the way things were back then.
Back in the day.
But yeah, she's calm, she's analytical, and she's brand new. So just kidding. What did you think of Kyoko Kirigiri, the new one? This is by a user by the name of Nicole, and also I don't know if it's Richer or Riker. He was responsible for the art. So we got some fresh faces, revamping an old face.
I'm gonna start off, and I feel bad because, like I said, of the first 3, I don't know. I've never played Sorta, so I don't really know a whole lot about the character. So I feel like the weight of my criticism and input is lessened by that. But I've recently I played Danganronpa a long time ago, and I recently kind of had a little renaissance where I was like, oh, I'm going to play Danganronpa again and play all the sequels. So I am super excited to talk about Kyoko Kirigiri, the ultimate detective, who when she first showed up, I wasn't on that kick yet, so she wasn't really on my radar. And her dev, Nicole or Kiki Retzorger, whatever it is at the moment. Sorry, she talked about her progress all the time, so it's almost sort of felt like I knew what was going on with the character. But it was only fairly recently, back when I was getting back in Danganronpa, I was like, oh, I should play with Kyoko Kirigiri. Obviously, right? I know what a Danganronpa is now. So, first off, get all the good stuff out of the way. Obviously, the models it fucking fantastic. Work beyond reproach from Ricard here. She looked like she crawled directly out of the game and into this one. So, just hats off for such
to be fair, Danganronpa kind of naturally has like good references, front facing.
Right. Oh yeah, but Even
kind of
still,
famous for that.
Oh yeah, I guess I'll take all that back. Never mind. It was easy, and obviously, if it wasn't at this level, then I would rightfully be shitting all over you. Anyway, but especially the pose where she's facing away, or her body's facing away, but her head is like pointed quarter backwards. That's exactly it. It's exactly the pose that's in the game, and it's such a good pose.
What, the Ultra Instinct pose?
Yeah, the one over the
Yeah.
shoulder. Yes, exactly.
yeah, ultra instinct. Yeah,
Ultra instant Kyoko Kirigiri. Okay.
yeah.
Can't really post it because, again, she's a custom head.
Boom. It's great, ain't it? But the custom pose, just trust us. It's great. But yeah, I was so just nothing but praise for that. And I do feel like the voice has been captured to a T. There's a lot of just the way. I mean, when you play Danganronpa, you hear this character talk ad nauseum. So you get a sense of her speech patterns, and definitely Nicole has nailed it, and she's got it. It's there. I have negative things to say though still, and it all stems from the fact that I mean, Kyoko's a character who's very observant. I mean, she's the ultimate detective. She's observant. She is always taking stock of what's going on, and as a result, she makes a lot of observations, but doesn't offer any insight. So
Okay.
So I mean, playing Danganronpa, people will say things and you're like, yeah, duh, obviously. But I think and Kyoko says that kind of things too, where it's like, yes, Kyoko, I know that. I've been awake the whole trial. I know who died. You don't gotta tell me. But I think it's fine to have like lines that are like that sometimes. But it feels like she has a lot of very specific filters and targets for very, very specific situations where basically the summary of what she's saying is just an acknowledgement of the situation. She does have some that aren't like that, obviously, but it just felt like sometimes like all she was saying was just pointing out that things are a certain way. So observation is fine, but observation with insight is better, especially from someone who is supposed to be very insightful. Because she sees things before you do. She knows what's up, and she does have a few lines where she's like, "I had a feeling you're going to say that," or like, "I had a feeling you're going to do that," and I think those are good. That's good that she's tracking things and she knows what's up, like she should be. And my other criticism, unfortunately, is I don't want to harp on it too much, but she has a lot of lines that are just her thinking to herself. And number one, I don't see why she can't just be saying these things, regardless of whether or not anyone's listening. But Kyoko is a character who is difficult to read. She's very stoic. She maintains eye contact. You generally don't know what's going on with her for the entirety of Danganronpa. You don't know what's up. So I feel like being able to read her mind is a little jarring for me. I don't know if I wholly agree with that choice. I like that you have committed to that choice. I don't like characters that aren't committed to that choice if they make it. But I think you may have over committed to it, or maybe I just feel like maybe as a character that shouldn't do it. I know at this point there are lots of lines that are like that, so just scrapping that entirely may be unfeasible, and I wouldn't ask for that. But I don't know. It just feels like she's thinking more than she's speaking sometimes. And I know she doesn't talk a lot in the first place, but I mean, just because of the nature of this, she should maybe just say some things out loud. Just because, it's weird. It's strange that she's reading her mind so often. That's just my hang up is she should be a character that's hard to read, hard to get a read on her, hard to know what she's thinking, and here we can read her mind. And it feels wrong. But on the whole, I was happy that she's here and she's very much in character and she looks exactly how she should look. So I think Yes, those are my thoughts. I've reached the end of my notes.
All right, thank you. Masp?
Yeah. I really like the new version of Kyoko. I think there's a lot of clearly a lot of love and detail that went into her. I actually disagree on the mind reading thing. Again, I have not played Danganronpa, but I think for characters that are like that are very observational, having that little bit of insight.
Dancing Rabombi.
What's up?
Dancing Rabombi.
Dancing Rabombi. Yeah, I have not played Dicks Out for Harambe, but I think it's really good to have that kind of as a backstop. Whether or not it's too much based on the character is up to you, but I personally think it's good. The other thing I guess is this is one of those characters that is very technically designed, is the way I'd put it, in the sense that when you open up a character in the character editor, you can see basically all of the prep work that's gone into minimizing the risk that this character misspeaks and all the things that kind of go along with it. And I definitely think that there's something very cool about that, and very
oh yeah,
it's effort that is well spent.
There are characters that are airtight, and there are characters that it's just I don't give a fuck. They say the wrong thing, whatever.
Yeah, as someone who veers on the less persnickety about that, it is a little bit overkill, because I think you're pretty much doubling or triplicating your work for something that doesn't actually make that much of a difference.
It can make it a little inflexible if you want to change things later.
Right. So I think I think that's great for redundancy, and knowing, what I know of Nicole, the author, I do believe that she is equipped to kind of streamline that work through whatever coding she's using to kind of re-coordinate that. But I also think when you're that detailed, if something breaks, it's really hard to solve later. That's my only thing that I'm concerned about. The dialogue is good. The art is excellent. The character seems really phenomenal to play with, and just really interesting. Yeah, I guess just the one thing that I think was kind of a criticism is it maybe I was playing the character wrong, and with all the details that are in here, maybe that's hard to do. It just didn't seem like she was super into the game as much, without meeting certain criteria. I played her 2 or 3 times, and it's just I'm not expecting her to be a total sex pot given who she is, but it would be kind of nice if there were more of that element, because she's not repressed. She's just serious. Anyway, good stuff. Can't wait to see more.
Well, I would agree. I would agree with that. I mean,
you would know, wouldn't you?
I have not played the. I have not played the Dingle Bazinga, but I would have. I don't know. She doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't seem like a total robot. She's just very serious and calm and collected and analytical, which is not the same thing as never having or showing any emotions. I mean, she even says I have needs. But that's the thing. It's like a show don't tell. It's okay, you told us that you have needs and that you can get worked up sometimes, but you didn't really show it too much. Except again, I think this is a common pitfall for serious characters, where they only show it at the very end, right before you're about to come.
Right. What is she into? You know what I mean? I think
you gotta work your way into it a little bit better than that.
She's into pathetic losers.
What?
That's her type. She likes people who are losers and fall in the trash.
What?
If you jump in the trash, Kyoko Kirigiri will go in the trash after you. You're hers now. You belong to her. You will live in the trash forever.
Yeah. So because you've made this super serious stoic character, I mean, for me personally, at least, the appeal of the stoicism is to see it crack. I say it every time. I don't know how appropriate that is, but I would think at least a little bit, right? There are things that work her up or disquiet her.
She does do this.
You gotta find what that is. You gotta find what she has a super strong opinion about.
I am reading her dialogue, and she does crack a little bit when she's talking to Chihiro, which I have my own kind of thoughts on that, but I think
okay, yeah, well, I mean in generic lines.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Like I
Because
think
you've
it's like
made
it
this,
can't just come out in that one area, right? Like it has to be.
because you've made this super stoic character, you have been automatically enrolled in the spnanon stoic character writing training course,
Congratulations. There's no way out.
and I will now coach you till the end of time. And by the end of time, I mean the end of this recording. I think I'm going to give you some advice, the same advice that Maya so often gives to her pilots, which is ignore the small fries. Don't sweat the small stuff. Focus on the what's the main objective, what's really going on.
Right.
What I mean by that is it's very easy for a serious analytical character to fall into the trap of just making really pithy statements about like what's going on around them, or like the state of the game, or like who's winning and who's leading and who took off what, and it's boring. When people say like stoic is boring, that's what they mean. Like when I think of like a stoic character that like can really like zero in on like what's most important, I see someone who just like cuts through all the fluff and all the small talk. It's like it doesn't really matter that they took off their shirt. It's like, what is the meaning of that? Like what is the implication of that decision? You should like cut to the heart of that and like be very direct about like, oh, you must be feeling this way. Like that's a lot more interesting than like, oh, you this well, your luck isn't so great right now, but we'll see if this pays off for you in the future. In a similar vein, I noticed she engaged in a little bit of trolling. She engaged in a little bit of bluffing. Bluffing is a bit of a curiosity in Spinati because there's no betting, so there's no real reason to bluff unless you are a super sweaty tryhard trying to mess with the player. And but the thing is with bluffing, because of how simple the game is, and like there's no raising or betting or anything, really all it ever comes down to is, well, what usually happens is they say the complete opposite. They just turn into opposite day Squidward. And they, like, I noticed it because she said, like, absolutely dreadful with the cards. Like, well, Kyoko probably wouldn't be that forthcoming. So, I mean, I guess before I even noticed she was bluffing, is like, is she just doing that to mislead me? And yeah, she had like 3 of a kind. That's like, oh, okay, yeah, real clever. No one's ever thought to do that. And it just, I don't know. That's a lot of wasted lines on just trying to mislead the player on the one bit of feedback they can get. It's far, like, it's just, yeah, okay, I guess it might be in character to try to mislead people a little bit and bluff, but it's like, come on. There's no money here. Everyone's going to lose, or one person's going to lose. It's not a big deal if you lose. Just don't be a tryhard. Like, just make conversation with your hand lines. It's so much more interesting than trying to fool everybody. When at best, it'll probably just work once. And then it'll be like, oh, okay, this character just says the opposite of whatever they have.
Right.
It's not that interesting. You could do a lot more with those lines. Same way you could do a lot more with the stripping lines, where you could start to psychoanalyze them a little bit more, or make conversation than just be like, who's leading and who's winning. I'm gonna guess the shame about having such a detailed model is that pose variety it's hard to make a pose, which means pose variety can suffer a little bit. That's another thing I just threw out there. And her forfeit posing seemed a little boring too. There was a lot of poses where she was just kind of kneeling down with like her thighs together, like this. Can't see anything good. I say it every time, but come on. Let me see the good stuff. Let me see her butthole. And you may have noticed in that pose there, she still has her gloves on. Very curious decision. I understand. Okay, so the thing that I learned this from the old Kyoko, the original. That like basically Kyoko has like extreme burn scars on her hands. Here, let me pose it. And old Kyoko actually took them off, and you can see the burn scars. Now Nicole, I think she was very clear about this. I think she made a post about it, how that's very out of character for Kyoko to ever do that. Now I understand that. I understand why you might not want to have her do that. I will say though, I think I've shared this story before, maybe not on the podcast, but definitely before. That old Kyoko doing that, having that actual serious character moment, was one of the first memories I have of really thinking this game was something special. It was like, oh wow, this fucking dumbass like paper doll porn game actually took a moment to like have a serious character moment where it's like not a joke or not making fun of her. It's just like, yeah, like this is who I am. This is my body. Check it out. And I'm trying to come to terms with it. It's like, damn, like there's some real potential here to have like actual writing and not just like fucking goofing around. And that's something I never saw in almost any other Rule 34. And as I'm sure all of us are here, we are Rule 34 connoisseurs. So we've been around the block. So I'm not saying you have to take off your gloves, but I do think you should do like something with it. Like I think like New Kyoko only brought it up very slightly. It's just like, well, I am not taking off my gloves, by the way. It's like, okay, well, if I didn't know why, then it'd just be like some weird standoffish comment. And so like for all the improvements that this new one has over the old one, I feel like you lost something. You lost a little something there. I mean, I almost think that like Binah characters should try to be like a microcosm of whatever character arc they have in the source material, because then you get to know them in the same way. And I'm gonna assume that she takes off her gloves at some point in the drizzle babizzle, because then like otherwise how would anybody know that? So I mean, at least acknowledge it in a little more like a emotionally available way towards the end. If she does, I never saw it. Yeah, like, hey, this is the reason, and hopefully you can accept me for who I am. But yeah, it's I mean, that's sort of the whole thing with the stoicism cracking in the first place. You eventually at some point you want to make them a little more accessible and inviting. But yeah, definitely improved overall. Just some creative decision making that is worth considering. I'm excited to see where this character goes in the future. Don't talk about cards and clothes so much. Solve the mystery at the heart of the matter. That's going to conclude things for episode 68. I think we have gone on long enough, considering we were supposed to make these shorter. Just kidding, nmasp, do you have any final thoughts on anything we've talked about today? Or anything you want to plug?
No, I think we're good. See you next time, everyone. And thanks for being on. Just kidding.
It was fun.
Was it? I think it was.
No, I'm sorry. I lied.
You were just kidding. Heyo.